Hello, dear Cory Booker. You're like a great guy. I like your personality, everything like that. Everyone has been leaving out the importance of understanding how black and white agencies and that which Ford's realized black and white agencies and intercultural agencies and judges and prosecutors and opinionators and colonists and everyone A through Z to roles with their laws and everyone speak anyway. Pretend to be about positive and negative anyway. Properly. Pretend to be about science anyway. So it is relevant that where and how we had fake sides. We have black and white representatives. Only allowed voice for the entire species identity of volume. For everybody. And that is happening now too. And that knew that would they raised reliant upon that would have to blame other things other than themselves for the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, where and how that was the answer to the real causes is tied to premises treatments, sequence treatments, science forsaken, sequence true forsaken. That identity thefts, frauds, roles that everyone was self-valuing roles with. No one allowed to speak other but pretending other. That's evidence. That prevents our founding parents and the counter-extortion of those forced to be a part of the Boston Tea Party. That's evidence. That's left out so they can make people have opinions. Forge convictions with physical delusions, which is relevant every time someone makes an opinion regarding physical, metaphysical, or identity culture. So in other words, mandated laws prevented. We have people pretending passions and emotions, pretending people are racism and prejudice as sequence shift roles, and in collusion with other sick passion and fakes pretending to be against such. So where and how what is good about Black Lives Matter, for example, uses of it by the media, I don't even know what is the origins of, and what is bad about it is prevented free speech. Short words are forced entertained as a quality that cannot, and with convictions that cannot afford proper treatments of the nature of the sentences inherent as the Declaration of Independence and of the Constitution, for example, grounded relationships to the identities of our founding republic and its founding parents, and their relevant as evidences forced stolen identities per a breaching method that forced everyone to pretend other per motivations, nature's needs, interests juxtaposed, real but ulterior from, and bonded in this method as American history is actually recorded. So that needs to obfuscate all the evidences that we could actually have told to us and have access to easily about all the bad things they did to people involved with this predicate acts delivery system method, involved with the creating the desperation and the hopelessness that you were speaking about, Mr. Booker. But you're leaving out how that hopelessness that was propagated by a predicate acts delivery system method that was utilizing reactions to it, utilizing our syntax / factory mean nature collusion, not with responses to emotions. If you wanted to have it, look at it that way, then put sequence true or the finite. See, we have our black and white leaderships then and now, and with a whole bunch of other nations, and with overt criminal enterprises, and with private ones. And all that, as all database relationships since before computers, further and further, only capable of self-valuing. The real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers, blamed on other things others themselves. It is worse than criminal incompetence, leaving out all that is simultaneously true all ways, not denying exceptions. That is evil, and that is proofs as evidence that there was a criminally foreign influenced zoning laws, criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatments, identity of database stewards. That's evidence that we should be able to use. The physical delusions of who denies that, the criminally foreign influence premises treatments they use, the sequence treatments, that's evidence. Its conjunction to the locations, areas, states, increasingly manifest natures of crimes and ones just becoming. This is tied to this, but you guys are preventing free speech, having prevented free speech, and having self-valued that. Because you guys have been using words like police as if it's A or B, as short words that leave out all the ways that the police are recorded with other police forms relevant to, involved with their wire crime methods, mail crime methods, falsified police reports roles, sequence shift methods, switching names, forging names, fact treatments, every word / value they ever used as victim predators originally and still. This is not just about voting. These are fake sides and fake alternatives, maintain breaching screens, maintain self-value, manifest because a breaching screen kept that manifest. We have the identity of the ground locations designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures overtly / insidiously. We have where insidiously valued, self-valued, in relationship to how we are prevented free speech from, in relationship to all the proofs of how they're being overt. Movements to the prevention of it that are bonded. So we have critical evidence how black and white judges and identities of law were in collusion as that criminally foreign influenced and entrenched in America since before America was a country. Specifically for then, for what is now. And so look, we have those natures of black identities of law that are their own, still relevant with their roles with the fake sides of correlation nature, fake uses of identities, offensively, preventing logic from demonstrating which the means to do it, to demonstrate what America's history is really about, what slavery is really about. Use what is true always, not denying exceptions as itself as truth. There are criminal insidiousness in nature is going to make a positive treatments distinctly from someone who's not criminally foreign influenced, who's not a criminal insidiousness nature. That's proof that something is not either just positive or negative, true or not. See, we have way worse than just evidence is trap. We have evidence is racketeering by a worse than war crimes method that was never unhinged. I use these words then these phrases, then everyone uses them. So we have the colleges and universities involved with sequence shifts, wire crime acts and methods, with the people who answer the phones for all private tied to them. Now, with the campus, they're involved with fabricating audio and video to hide what is actually recorded audio and video, and they have been doing this. Then they just put fake transcripts to represent what is actually recorded over Facebook, over YouTube. Then they have the perfect world forsaken more and more. In the narratives where and has and how, we have the agencies, former director of the FBI, worse than criminal incompetence. And his roles leading up to in the World Trade Center attack, and then we're leading up to and in the Connecticut cases. His roles with people when he was physically present and not. Like he was a co-defendant in a 2006 part of a case. /s. That was ongoing at the time of the victim's death. Also involved with people involved with predicate acts against the victim in the context of his death and against their family members like me. Involved, in other words, they're pretending, then they just stop people because they make allegations against people without preventing us from finite words. Because these were people that were already before that involved with predicate acts with each of the campuses I went to since I was a little kid. The same ones that are involved with attaching little kids and their family members to fake locations. They already used their kids for predicate acts that prosecutors and judges had and have, and with their family members. A whole bunch of various natures of courts and police forms. And these are people involved with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones, and with the witness protection programs, direct and indirect ties to Wethersfield. Also involved with the people with the wire crimes and mail crimes, and predicate acts on my street, with the people trying to start fights between people, intercities, same ones, connected to the predicate acts on my street. There's a D. Simone family. I don't know where they live. They used to live here years ago. That name was spoken to me by a nurse named Britt, who's one of the ones involved with judges, involved with sexual and medical and medicine crimes with kids and with their family members and other natures of organized crime with kids. It's also tied to their confessed, recorded, and demonstrated roles with on-off Trinity College locations and on-off CCSU locations that are involved with them with evidence organized crime, acts in cases, criminally foreign influenced outcomes and uses of their databases and of their selves. And then further and further, they have to hide from correlation nature and value correlation nature, hurt by that which they are maintained, increasingly collusion with to all identity of the ground locations, areas, and states, let alone against each individual. Each individual is sickly, distinctly prevented free speech by those rules, pretending others simultaneously, or you're prevented free words. You're prevented short words, and you're prevented long words, and that's sustained, maintained, and maintains manifest uses of short words and responses of people with long words when, for different reasons. All those reasons. They exploit that rather than revealing what we're supposed to have revealed for us and to us and us ourselves. So, forging names and switching names and pretending not to understand the words people say is why they have been simultaneously faking conversations about the words people need to say, and fake conversations with individuals in where and how people are trained to answer phones for different industries and for different branches of government distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, which is also evidences where there were other overt criminal enterprises and private ones involved, recorded and involved with the narratives they have in the backgrounds, lying when I speak, for example, through this video, forging names, switching names over the phone, rape threats, uses of child campuses with the principal child offenders campus, then and now, further through, before he got caught and since, the people who are answering the phones at that school are further involved with other schools in Wethersfield, like the Southstein Middle School and intercities, with the people involved with CCSU predicate acts on and off the campus, and Trinity College predicate acts on and off the campus, and using of the identities of the ground of the campuses in relationship to the sense and sensibilities of populations of the schools, alumni, and off campuses relationships formal. These are not just all formal, and where they have the right to lie tied to their training and on and off relationships natural. Maybe, where they have where they have the criminal justice department of criminal justice treatments at Central Connecticut State University, and the members of it are involved with predicate acts in cases. And that also reveals them involved with uses of color. As our leaders with criminal incompetence, one of the ways they've been hiding it is where and how intercultural is in collusion, with which is sick here and there, hundreds of nations at once. America just fell last to it. So we have a fact-cheaping nature illness that is pretending to be about free speech and pretending people are making allegations when they use evidences and logic that shows that and how we are not having free speech. So they are spending all that time with sentences, truths. What is true always, not denying any exceptions, is that Black Lives Matter. See, but they are valuing exceptions being created with truths. In other words, where they're using truths, Black Lives Matter, but they're using it for lies. They're using it to pretend they care about things like free speech, about things like integrity, about things like sequence, about things like identity. True, but they're not true. They are not letting you hear anyone who's going to speak for you as an identity of volume, the way you're supposed to be spoken for humanity, individual, group, and together. When it's not three simultaneous, it's not positive. It's only temporary positive as criminal insidiousness nature. I am not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. It is also evidence that and how we had lawyers and interbranch involved with that breaching method, which was preventing free speech. Not just that was left entrenched. The second our founding parents declared that we're going to be our own country and put a constitution, didn't change the fact that that was already entrenched here. So we have to have the fabrication of audio and video of the interbranch countered. This reveals where and how integrity that we've been pretending, our people have been pretending, in relationship to sanctions treatments and things like that. Context they call peaceful, where you have to counter overtly sick. It shows it in other countries too, hundreds of countries at once. But hundreds of countries at once are commonly, every single one of them, all locations, areas, and states. Their science treatments, their identity treatments, their sequence treatments, our delusions wrought, and our criminally foreign influence premises treatments relevant. See, but we don't have free speech. We have all communications channels. Physically, since before computers, this was an identity of the ground. And database relationships oriented so it could stay further and further from that back to all identity of the ground, locations. Overt criminal enterprises were engineered and maintained as a phenomenon that stays manifest, specifically for where and how. There is this syntax / fact-cheaping nature / identity racketeering that our leaders have forced collusion with by our local areas and states leaders, all victim predators. So when we use evidences correctly, we have to discern the breaching method and the other nations' involvements through them. So that's relevant to where and how. There and here, sanctions treatments and countering bodies and things like that, those kind of peaceful contexts and representatives of the species identity of volume only allowed to be the ones, only realized be the ones to be relied upon more and more to counter things like war, things like overt crazy things like slavery. See, that was North and South entrenched. Our founding parents could only force through one location they didn't have choice about, a civil war about it. Not really to free slavery, Both sides were fake. Where as victim predators, needing to react to overt victim predators, fact treatment nature wise. And that was already having been sustained to where it was juxtaposed with what is not just fact treatment nature tied. So we have sequence shifts recorded tied to the people that hurt your feelings and that try to hurt people's feelings. The only way they can get away with it is because it's sequence shifts, because of how investigations, vetting identities, investigators are involved with locations criminally. Worse than criminally, worse than war crimes. As victims too, that's relevant. Because we have to speak about how good people are maintained evil. Because that's evidence too. Because they're in the way of free speech. I mean, they're in the way of science. You guys are in the way of science. You guys needing to pretend to yourselves and to others that the reason we don't have all those evidences about all the bad things they did to black people are other than their real causes. Because you guys are the ones leaving out the predicate acts delivery system method, forcing interpretation of those evidences or knowledge of those evidences to be proofs of positive and negative to think, in logic that itself defended can't afford the protraction of anyone who wants to use the evidences that are actually recorded of where and how the police have been fabricating audio and video in cases, how they've been sticking sequences into their databases, how they've been evaluating that being and having been done with the campuses, how that is maintained with inter-campuses and intra-campuses manifest. For example, I don't know the name of him yet, a black guy associated with, when he was a kid, he was associated with a Mike Domain and with a whole bunch of people tied to the house on my street with a name Cololo, that Bob Chase and that Weathersfield police keep recording, confessing, demonstrating, also with judges and prosecutors criminally involved with a Dillon family and various natures of organized crime with investigations, vetting identities on my street. They've been attaching me to fake words with my parents and them with fake words with me through since I was a kid. They've been doing this to other kids. WFSB does this with them, spreading fake recorded things, lies about it in the past, and actively, increasingly, through to people on and off campuses. See, we have investigators, investigations, vetting identity, and relationships to the schools that are manifest, where and how they kept and keep all juxtaposed natures of evil and of fake positive, rely upon the same identity of negative value nature progressions hierarchy, kept criminally foreign influence used remotely. This is not complicated. So in other words, you have to follow how, where, and how. Simply, when they try to put their logic on paper, it shows that and how the courts and the police forms, the courts, for example, distinctly, they record themselves saying things out of sequence into records and to pretend things were recorded that weren't, and preventing people from response. And they have lawyers also in collusion with this. And they have wire crime acts and methods. And they have medicine crimes and drug crime rules on and off campuses, on and off their medical campuses also, on and off interbranch locations, on and off where they live, on and off where the neighbors of everybody lives. This is how they keep sense and sensibilities played per this method that keeps organized means without a census, since before our founding parents were sophistication or even born. This database is tied, predicate acts delivery system method, kept that to only be capable of going further and further to collusion with all identity of the ground locations, areas, and states. Propagated. as fact treatment nature styles, syntax treatment nature styles, identity treatments that couldn't be defended then or now, and us from what maintains our locations, areas, and states increasingly needing to hide lie progressions right through, and having and lies, and not by accident having investigators vetting identities and phenomena right there to unfold, to blame things on, and or to attach things to fake things that are real, like where people do wrong. Because in other words, since everyone was a kid, the government was telling you they're fake. And so it is critical to be able to use and to be able to report what is actually recorded, where and how our black and white leaders and our intercultural leaders are in collusion, originally and still. They are preventing that predicate acts delivery system method that is actually recorded from being discerned. So they even have all aspects, every science, every cultural aspect, even like comedy and stuff like that. They offensively have those people in collusion with the interbranch and foreign inclusion. Not just the foreign police inclusion, not just the foreign business inclusion, not just the overt criminal enterprises. One bonding that. One really what is most furthering the worst things. And how? And how per what is force sustained. So we have various natures of courts and their family members and themselves and the prosecutors tied to them and the programs tied to them. Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center are also relevant to their intercampuses predicate acts roles. And so there was also a woman when she was a kid at my campus. She recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that she was supposed to establish if I was friends with my neighbor, Ray Colo, or just neighbors. And she repeated, I told her we're just neighbors. Because she was also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed before that, involved with the sequence shifts, with the judges, and with the prosecutors criminally involved, with them and with the people up my street, what I'll call the O'Brien family, that are involved with foreign and domestic families, on-off Trinity College, on-off CCSU, and police forms involved with sick crimes with little boys and girls, and on-off religious locations, and on-off like with Cub Scout locations, like witches' homes, per their message being used through the kids. Everyone speaking through other people, through their methods of using and having used their own kids for such, because they need to pretend passions and emotions. While they're preventing people from reporting how the interbranch have been fabricating audio and video. They have the sequestering of juries, the whole process recorded criminally foreign influenced. People involved with that are involved with the patients and criminals and sick people and innocent people, that the sick people have been blaming the phenomena they created, the illusions they created with their crimes. The same people with the charge to go against crimes. All words/values have been used criminally by our identities of the law. Not just you, Mr. Booker. You're a great person. I think you should be better than this. And so you guys have worse than criminal incompetence. For example, regarding this, every identity of the law. Of course, you guys are preventing the predicate acts delivery system method active now from being demonstrated. You're preventing those evidences from being used because you want to offensively pretend you know more about people and things because you have more evidence to you're using knowledge to get over on correlation nature. And as a style, you're defending that. And you're needing to value criminally foreign influence premises treatment, sequence treatments, pretended as other, as the foundation of what you're pretending is other. To yourself and to others. I say everyone's doing this, not just you, Mr. Booker. I just know that you're a strong person, you can be better than this. You just have to realize because you came through criminally foreign influence campuses. But see, rather than stay on that, which is true always, not denying exceptions, and all exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. See, there's a dread difference when you're about subjects as the science of what is simultaneous, of what does not deny the slightest exceptions, does not value the slightest exceptions denied. That reveals what caused slavery, a predicate acts delivery system method. That reveals what it was used for then and what it is being and having been used for now. That reveals how that is being obfuscated, how that is being screened, how others being pretended simultaneously, how names forging and switching in wire crime acts and methods were and are used by courts per their locations crimes, per their roles with what is force sustained bad, or they exploit it as criminal insidious nature and worse. Now you guys also make allegations against people when you're preventing us from reporting the specific predicate acts and wrongdoing acts in actually recorded natures and names forging and switching. So there are a bunch of people with the name Sullivan and tied to them with the name Sullivan who are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the departments at Central Connecticut State University, with former director of the FBI, with many people tied to former director of the FBI, and to federal criminal code defendants of his that are involved with a pattern of child abuses and of elderly abuses that are connected. Also with the predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off Trinity College, and the relevant confessions. And from people who are, and uses of words like lie. Of course, they want me to debate. No, these are people that use investigators, and vetting identities. Are criminally foreign influenced. That is one thing that is true always, not denying exceptions when people deny that black people are hurt, are being hurt. See, but what needs to pretend other when it's involved with that? It needs to pretend, to be that sound logic is legitimate. That is not legitimate. That is not sound logic. Because it can't afford anyone individually grouped together to use our simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. It would sequence true. And with our identities not stolen by that with the vertical and horizontal database solution stacking. Intra-campuses manifest and on-off campuses manifest. Originally and still maintained off-campuses influenced outcome/S. Tied to how Washington, D.C. and the World Trade Center also has been using their knowledge. In other words, and their jobs and their roles with other nations peacefully and non-peacefully in collusion against correlation nature here and there. So please follow mandated law for Wethersfield Interbranch. Pick one name and sequence for our leaders, and don't pretend not to realize the significance of how black agencies are. Therefore, many black people involved with that racketeering method, with logic, that originally and that still, which is preventing the predicate acts delivery system method. That is a whole bunch of methods of liars pretending they're other upon areas. And you guys are speaking for integrity? Integrity, you guys never had integrity, and then you have to pretend integrity is about voting. Oh, it's the other side. If the Republicans entertain that, it'd be very bad. And so all exceptions, exception nature, and demonstration of it. That can't defend, and that can't be what is needed to be. The healthcare initiatives of Barack Obama, thank God for him. I'm not saying that I know more than everyone in the world. I'm saying I'm using what is true always, not denying exceptions, not valuing them and denying. You guys are preventing that type of quality logic from being used as criminal insidious natures because it was criminally legalized, and that's self-value. What is really the order of the finite? It's increasing a value of relationship to itself positive. What is real, while simultaneously being the same identity of value progression that the order of the finite is. Sequence true, order of the finite, active, progressive, and where and how identity we are a semi-nature relationship as a complete, which in relationship to what will only stay complete. So we have to be semi-nature simultaneously. This is forever nature compiling. So the high languages have to compile because they're not working with machine code, or that's what they have to compile. The coding the programming that they fit the variable relationships, function relationships for users or for programmers, leaving that part out so they could get right to object-oriented programming or whatever. And so, in other words, they could have, you have to use less time. But then what they're building is not just slower. In the where our native system, that truth that is not denying exceptions, not denying exception nature, not valuing them denied, not valuing them having been denied. That is what science works by. That is how those identities of value, those five, how those orders of value, those five, and how the value of that, those five, how they are simultaneous, how they have a relationship that can be simultaneously positive or negative, and how that reveals evolution's fruits or gifts or their loss is evidence. But this is not being allowed to be demonstrated. So, Wethersfield town offices, Wethersfield churches, Wethersfield schools, they are involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime and of other nations, relevant to and as what they are ducking behind, while fabricating audio and video, and while having been fabricating audio and video, which is relevant because it's also tied to how they are recorded and have been recorded involved with real estate crimes on my street against and fake sides, forcing sides and issues, or them to be ignored in relationship to their predicate acts and as people associated with people on the child offender registry, including the principal child offender, then and further involved with them with these predicate acts, and with these judges of various natures of courts with sequence shifts and roles with the rape threats while they still had the principal child offender in there, and they're fabricating audio and video with such, and the other people associated with them further involved with that, and with town offices of Wethersfield. They have other countries like Afghanistan and stuff like that recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved on and off Wethersfield Library with predicate acts with judges and prosecutors, and with the school next to it and the schools next to it, and as ones involved with the predicate acts on Trinity College, on CCSU, that are also involved with predicate acts with people, and with the lawyer of Robert Chevrolet is the lawyer of Robert Luskin in a 2006 case like right before that case is when the Thaddeus Grabowski is one of the ones involved on and off Fox Connecticut News with the increasing predicate acts they have against me and others recorded and rolls. And so then they pretend this is personal. WFSB, the same thing. They have worse, in some ways too. Because in locations next to them too are also with a Mike Kerr and Officer Jerry Miller, and they have names forging and switching the name K on ER, and dozens from the Britain Superior Court and from the Hartford courts recorded, confessed, and demonstrated fabricating audio with them, fabricating video with them, falsified police reports rolled with them, identity thefts, frauds, mail crime rolls with them, wire crime rolls with them. They have Town Line Drive locations involved with judges and prosecutors. They have a Jennifer Smith that they pretend they might. I never had one word of conversation with her. She through time she was recorded, confessed, demonstrated by people tied to her and involved with judges and with a former Mayor Gold, with predicate acts with them, and with the same house, that this clubhouse that the police just called and confirmed, confessed, demonstrated, recorded, further involved with them with names forging and switching, wire crimes, mail crimes, and with the principal child sex offenders campus. As Bob Chase also confessed, recorded, and demonstrated that Phil Cololo and Christine has roles with them with predicate acts with judges and prosecutors, with child sex offenders, and with medicine crimes, drug crimes with the kids, and with some body dumping spots, and untimely deaths that are connected to the pattern of confessions relevant, per how they have been delaying me means to anyone to speak with, and per the crime methods of the courts regarding regarding how they've been directing the people who answer the phones at the locations, also juxtaposed with the other foreign influences. This is a trap that was set up since before our founding parents were born. It is critical to understand how the evidences of black and white leaders in collusion, preventing the order of the finite and the order of reliefs necessary and relevant and ready now from being demonstrated ready now. That's a problem. You guys are in the way. You guys. So just follow mandated law and let evolution have its course here. I'll speak for black people because you guys left this out, and you left a lot out. Because what is true always, not denying exceptions, we're going to reveal this. I'm going to show you guys how to think, because you guys have some still sick physical delusions with the doctors of logic and simultaneously needing to pretend other.